Howdy doody do, drummers! It's Rob Litton here from drumstheword.com. Hope you're doing well and welcome to this free mini song lesson. Today I'm going to show you how to play the song The French Open by Foals, drummed by Jack Bevan. This song was requested over on my Facebook page several times, so I'm very happy to actually finally get around to doing it. And you can download the free PDF that comes with this lesson. You'll find two sheets that I've transcribed, just really the best parts of the song, the most important parts of the song. And with these two sheets, you can pretty much cover the entire tune with all these parts. But these are the most interesting bits, drum beats and fills. We'll be going over each one individually, perhaps with some suggestions to simplify it as well. Yeah, but you can download the free PDF. You'll find a link beneath my website. And while you're down at my website, you might also want to consider signing up to become an online member where I teach you a full song from start to finish. Every single bar, you get the fully transcribed drum chart. And I've got over 300 famous and popular songs now. So check out my website for more details on that. All right, let's crack on with the lesson. So we'll start with the first section. And the drums come in at 24 seconds with a really meaty drum fill. And it starts, the bass drum starts on the and a beat 4, the bar just before the drum fill. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. The tempo's 146 BPM, so 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. We're going into beat 1 there and 1 with a flam on the snare drum. Now the next thing that Jack does is interesting. He starts on the high tom and goes down to the floor tom, so it plays a set of triplets. And to 2, and to 2, and to 2. Now what makes it interesting and tricky is in order to get down the toms like that, you have to start with your left hand starting the triplets. And that's something I haven't practiced a lot of. For whatever reason, I don't know why, some licks I find more difficult than others, but playing a set of 4 notes as triplets, starting with the left hand, it throws me off every time. And there's a great video of Jack online playing this live in a studio, a radio studio. And he makes a few mistakes with this particular drum fill. He starts to shout out loud as he knows he's just messed up. But anyway, it starts with the left hand, so you can get down to the floor tom for the last note. That's why it starts with the left hand. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 2. And it's hard to count that fast, but I'm counting and to 2 and to 2 and to 2 and to 2. So it starts there on the and, ends there on 2 and 2. Then we get the bass drum on the and of 2. 2 and then into a flam on beat 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. See what I mean with that? I'm being honest here, I'm not cutting this out. You can see all my mistakes. So I'd have to practice that round a few times. I'd much rather start with my right hand, but of course you can't get round to the floor tom that way, so in isolation I get it comfortable, but then with the drum fill, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, it sounds a bit sloppy. Anyway, that's how you play that drum fill. He then goes into this kind of like reggae ska kind of groove. It's a half-time fill. The tempo of the song doesn't change throughout. It starts with this sort of half-time feel, and then later in the song, halfway through, it turns into a double-time feel. But we go into this next bar for the drum fill. We rest beat 4, and we play 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So the tempo's going by fast. 1, 2, 3. We're playing like a half-time drum beat feel. Half-time drum beats, by the way, just when you play usually 1 snare drum in the bar rather than on beats 2 and 4. In this case, the snare drum back beat falls on beat 3. Then we start to play around with the bass drum. Notice that the hi-hat is maintained on 2 and 4 and the snare drum backbeat on beat 3. 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Next line we get 2 bars of this, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I'm counting it double time, accidentally. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Same for the next bar, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Then this next bar is really cool. What happens here is, the reason it sounds weird is because suddenly the hi-hat's backbeat on 2 and 4, well not backbeat, but the hi-hat is then played at double time on the and of 1 and the and of 2. So on its own it's quite simple to play, but with the rest of the groove it's interesting. It picks your ears up, pricks your ears up, so you did with mine. We get 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3. It's going back into that half-time fill afterwards though. 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Lovely idea that. Next bar, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And the last bar is the same as the line above it. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. So we got pretty much all the variations of the drum beats he plays for this first part of the song in those 2 lines. Let's try and play that slowly for you, and then we'll play up to speed. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 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 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 1 and 2 and 3 4 1 2 and 3 4 1 and 2 and 3 4. And now let's hear it played up to speed without the microphone on so you can hear just the drums. Here we go. So this next 2-bar drum fill occurs pretty much after, almost after the last section I just showed you. Starting at 37 seconds, we get, I've written the first bar, so we've got the groove, but notice the drum fill starts on the and of beat 4. So it goes over into the second bar. 1 and 2 and 3, so standard groove at the beginning, 1 and 2 and 3, 4, and then get ready. I've written the sticking as left, right, left leading again, just because that's the kind of, if he started playing these triplets with his left hand, he's probably going to keep doing it. But you could play this leading with your right hand instead. But leading with your left hand, you come up with the right hand nicely on the hi-hat. So it makes sense as well. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and to 1 and. I'm playing and to into 2/8 notes. 1 and 2, 1 and 2 and 3, 1 and 2 and 3. Just leading into that with the triplets. Not getting confused as to which hand ends. 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1 and 2. It's a lovely drum fill though when it rolls like that. So now let's hear it played up to speed without the mic on. Okay, this next section occurs at 45 seconds, and just like we had previously on the second line of the first bit I showed you, where we suddenly moved to the hi-hats being played on the ands, we get this double time feel. This is really cool. We've still got the backbeat falling on beat 3, really. So it's still kind of a half-time feel, but the hi-hat is playing 8th notes on the ands. Sorry, playing on the ands, and so it makes it feel like it's suddenly doubled in tempo when it hasn't. So just line up the notes to start off with, and when you loop it, I recommend you try and play a bar of groove before and after it, the slower groove. But slowly, this first bar, 1, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So when we play up to speed in a second, you'll hear that the 8th note is being maintained on the and, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and the bass drum, 1 and 2, 1 E and 2 E and 3 and 4 and 1 E and 2 E and 3 and 4. It has that kind of feel. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Easiest way is just to make sure you hear that hi-hat being falling on the ands, and just line up your bass drum and snare drum according to where the hi-hat is. So we got 1 and then the hi-hat on the and of 2, and with the bass drum 3 and 3 and then the and 4 on the end. Then the next bar, it does something similar, but it ends on beat 3. 1 and 2 and 3. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And at that point, it then goes back into the half-time feel where the hi-hat moves back to 2 and 4. So, in context, slowly, with a drum beat before and after it, so you can hear this change, the flow of notes. It's really cool. Sounds like this. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. I've got to try and count it out loud. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2, 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. You can see how that sort of feels. Really nice idea that. Anyway, let's hear it played up to speed properly. Okay, this next section occurs at 50 seconds. We got the first part is just the groove, 1 and 2 and 3. So we've done that before already. 1 and 2 and 3, 4. And then starting on the and of 4 again, we get this similar idea, similar drum fill, 16th note triplets, starting on the and of 4, going into beat 1 of the next bar. And it starts on the high tom, and he plays and 1, and to 1. But I've written it's left hand lead, but you could play it right hand lead. because your hands have got space to come down from the high tom to the snare drum if you've got your tom in front of you. So you don't have to play as left-hand lead, but I imagine Jack was playing it left-hand lead. And 1 and 2. We go into the open hi-hat there on 2. 1 and 2, 3, 4. And you can hear we got this open hi-hat pattern going on. If you look at the third bar, we're playing 1 and 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1. So the hi-hat's closing on beat 1 and beat 3 with the first of the two bass drums and with the snare drum, but it's opening in between each of the other notes. 1 and 2, 3, 4. 1 and 2, 3, 4. So slowly that line. 1 and 2 and 3, 4, and 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2, 3, 4, 1. Now let's hear it up to speed. So this next section occurs at 1:19, and this is where the song turns into a double time feel. So now we're pumping bass drums on the quarter notes. We're feeling 1. We're playing 1 and 2 and 3, and the most important thing here is to feel the hi-hats now on the ands of each beat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. These hi-hats on the ands. So the first two bars, standard stuff, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Second bar, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. But then we get this and a 1, a snare drum fill, and a 1 into the bass drum on the next bar. And a 1 and 2, and a 1 and 2 and 3. No snare drum backbeat yet. So let's loop those two bars, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and 2 and 3 and 4, and 1 and 2 and 3. So you got, it flows into the bass drum on its own. It doesn't flow into the hi-hat. Get that bit right and it will flow. Next two bars exactly the same, except from beat 3 of the last bar, we get this drum fill. 3E and a 4, and you'll be pleased to know you can start with your right hand. 3E and a 4. This time it's just 16th notes, 4 of them. 3E and a, ending on 4 on the floor tom. 3E and a 4. In fact, you have to play right hand lead because you're coming down the toms. Then with a surprise snare and crash on the and a 4. Very ska reggae kind of thing that, emphasising the and a beat 4, or the ands in general. So those two bars, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and a 4 and. Notice the bass drum was still pumping on 3 and 4 underneath it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and let's hear it up to speed. Okay, this is fun. This next bit occurs at 1:30, and I've got for you like a 5-bar section which gets looped around. This section in the song, these are the variations he plays in these 5 bars really. So we get this drum fill he repeats a lot for this section, where he plays 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. When I say a lot, it's probably only a couple of times, but anyway. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Just round the toms like that with flams and bass drums. Starts and ends on the snare drum on the and of 1 and the and of 4. Then our groove, it goes into this. The basically we're playing still 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, but the snare drum backbeat now is falling on the and of 2 and the and of 4 with the hi-hats. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and creating this upbeat effect. So with the drum fill before, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Into the next line where that pattern continues, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, but then that bar there we have the and a 1 drum fill again. Remember, it flows into the bass drum, not the hi-hat. And a 1 and 2. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a 1 and 2 and into the next bar there, and a 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and just a groove bar there. And then to end the loop he plays 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now I've written it as a floor tom flam, but it could be just the two toms flam together. It doesn't really matter, just give it some power. The and a 3 here, either on the floor tom flammed or between two toms flammed, and then the and a 4 on the snare drum. 3 and 4 and 3 and 4 and. So we get slowly those two lines, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And now let's hear it up to speed. So coming to the end of the song at 1 minute 58, we're kind of just playing sort of a disco beat. Very simple, really. The hi-hat is opening every and we're playing the bass drum on 1, 2, 3 and 4, snare drum backbeat on 2 and 4. So without the open hi-hat, we're playing 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and so standard backbeat on 2 and 4, but the hi-hat's opening every time you strike it. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, creating that sort of disco beat. Disco is still a term. Can we still call it a disco beat? It's a bit 70s, 80s that, isn't it? It needs to be updated. Dance beat. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. So, I've written here, Jack is playing some very subtle ghost notes in the background. So, I didn't want to tell you, write down specific ghost notes for this because I couldn't be 100% sure whether he is actually playing them. They're really subtle, very quiet. You sort of feel something he's playing. I think he plays some little ghost notes at the end of the bar, the end of beat 2 and the end of beat 4, sort of almost dragging into beat 1 and beat 3. So, that's pretty advanced. If you can't play ghost notes, don't worry about it. But this first example, I'm sort of playing, well, let's work it out. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. Yeah, I'm playing that sort of classic idea. 1, 2, 3 and 4, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 1 and playing in between the hi-hats there. If you really can't get the ghost notes quiet, they have to be quiet, then leave them out. That's just an extra little bit of nuance if you wanted to make it a bit more fun for yourself or add in some extra levels of difficulty. But on the recording, you don't really hear them, so I haven't written them. The other variation, I think you might be playing 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. A little drag into beat 1. So if we combine those two ideas and improvise a little bit, and we can have some fun with the snare drum while maintaining this relatively simple dance beat. But don't let the snare drums the ghost notes throw you off. Focus on the groove, staying in time with the song. Okay, let's just hear those ideas up to speed as well. And then finally, right at the end of the song, 3 minute 40, we've got this really cool drum fill. And this reminds me of Grohl, Dave Grohl. It reminds me of Dominic Howard. I've done variations of this drum fill many, many times. It seems to pop up in song after song. It's a really, really cool idea. I'll run you through it in a second. First of all, the bar before is just the groove going into it. He starts to accent crash cymbals on 1 and 3 while still maintaining that open hi-hat. It's not being closed now, it's just being let to wash open. So we get 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and basically 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, but with 1 and 3 accented on the crash cymbal. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. The bar ends just before the drum fill. We've got a pick-up bass drum note on the of beat 4. 4 and So get ready with that bass drum. That's going to lead you into the first flam of the drum fill. A 1. Now, what we've got here is a 6-note pattern. And you can see that the notes written in brackets there is the ghost note, supposed to be played quietly. To start off with, I'm going to take out those ghost notes because they're not essential for the groove, for the fill, for the idea to work. But then we'll add them back in again. So without the fills, the ghost notes, we get 1 and a 2 and a 2E. And it loops 1E and a 2E. It loops around like that. It's a 6-note pattern. 1E and a 2E and it starts again on the and of beat 2 in this case, takes 6 more notes, then ends on beat 4. So that's the pattern. What he then does is he adds in a ghost note with the left hand after the flam. It's like a flam tap. That's pretty advanced. If you can't put that ghost note in, then leave it out. You can hardly hear it on the recording, but it's there. But with the ghost note, we get, it's a flam tap. Don't worry about it too much if you really can't play it. The last one, though, it resolves by playing 4E and It could be the floor tom, it could be the high tom. I don't really know. It doesn't really matter what tom you use. But it's like you're starting the pattern again. I've written it as the floor tom. But it ends like that, 4E and straight into our final flam on beat 1 of the last bar. So we've got that little turnaround bit at the end. we suddenly come out of 6-note groupings back into 4-note groupings. So we get 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. Excuse me. Muscle memory sort of kicked in there. I'm not really sort of thinking about it too much. I played this drum fill many, many times. And improvise with it. It's just really good fun to play around the drums. But we got this. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. And with the bar before, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a 1. So listen out for that bass drum push on the of beat 4 there as I go into the first flam. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. And now let's hear it played up to speed. So I hope you found that fun. That was a real fun song for me to teach you guys. Don't forget you can download the PDF from my website. You'll find a link beneath this video. Go over to Facebook as well and join my page. That's a great place to make your own song suggestions. Like I said, this song was suggested over there. So if you want to join in and help decide what songs I teach, then Facebook, Drums the Word page is the best place to go for that. And while you're on the website, a little bit of sales bit, as there always is, I'm afraid. Please do consider signing up to become an online member at Drums the Word. And what I offer for $97 is a full year's access to the entire website. As I said at the beginning of this video, I've got over 300 famous and popular songs, which you get instant access to. Every single note explained, the full drum chart you can print out and have in front of you. But then as a thank you for signing up for that $97, you get access to hundreds more mini videos teaching you many, many more drum beats, fills and solos, famous ones, popular ones. 3 ebooks I've written over the years containing, guess what, hundreds more famous and popular drum beats, fills and solos. And then over the year of your subscription, you also gain instant online access to all the new material that I upload for my members. So you've got lots and lots of cool stuff to look forward to over the year of your subscription. And if you're on my Facebook page, you even get to help decide what lessons get taught. But if you've got any questions about any of that, then email me, rob@drumstheword.com. And until our next drum lesson together, toodle pip and happy drumming to you.